Rain fell softly over the small town, turning the streets into mirrors of light. A blind boy named Eli walked slowly, his thin fingers holding a wooden cane that clicked against the ground. Every sound was a guide to him. The dripping rain, the faraway hum of cars, the soft barking of a dog somewhere behind a gate. He was only 14, yet he walked like someone who had learned to survive in silence. Eli lived at the town's orphan shelter. It was an old building with cracked paint and doors that creaked when opened. He didn't mind it much. What hurt him more was how the world treated him outside those walls. People pitied him, some ignored him, and others, mostly boys from the nearby school, laughed at him. To them, he was the blind orphan, someone they could mock to feel powerful. That evening, Eli was returning from the small grocery store near the park. He carried a paper bag with bread and a carton of milk, both meant for the shelter's breakfast. The rain made the air cold, and his thin jacket did little to keep him warm. Still, he moved carefully, tapping his cane ahead with steady rhythm, tap, tap, tap. Each sound helped him build a picture in his mind of the path ahead. He had memorized every turn, every broken tile on the sidewalk, every familiar smell of the street. But then, behind him, came laughter. Sharp and mean, Eli froze. He knew those voices, the same boys who often waited for him outside the shop, the same ones who thought his blindness was funny. "Well, look who's out again," one of them sneered. "Still using that stick to find your way, huh?" Another mocked. Their footsteps grew louder. Eli tightened his grip on his cane and whispered softly, "Please, just leave me alone." But bullies never stopped when they saw fear. One of them kicked a stone that hit Eli's shoe. Another slapped the paper bag from his hands, spilling the milk across the wet road. The bread fell into a puddle. The boys laughed louder. Eli reached down slowly, trying to pick it up, but one boy snatched the cane from his hand. The world instantly became darker, if that was even possible. Without the cane, Eli couldn't move. He stood frozen, his hands trembling. "Give it back," he pleaded quietly. "Oh, you mean this?" the boy said, pretending to wave it around. Then came a crack. They broke it, snapped it clean in half. The sound hit Eli harder than the rain or the cold. That cane had been his only help, his only way to walk freely. Without it, he was lost. The bullies dropped the broken pieces on the ground and walked away, still laughing. When their footsteps faded, silence returned, broken only by the rain. Eli bent down, searching for the pieces. His hands touched the wet wood, smooth and splintered. His throat felt tight and tears slipped down his cheeks. He whispered, "Why me?" But there was no answer. He sat on the cold pavement, hugging his knees, feeling small against the wide, uncaring night. The streetlight above flickered. Cars passed, but no one stopped. To everyone else, he was invisible. Minutes turned to an hour. The paper bag lay ruined beside him. Eli thought of the other kids at the shelter waiting for breakfast, of the caretaker who would scold him for being late. He thought of his parents, people he barely remembered, faces that were only shadows in his mind. He wondered if this was how his life would always be. Dark, lonely, full of voices that mocked and hands that hurt. Then, in the middle of that quiet despair, Eli felt something faint but strange. A shift in the air, footsteps, slow, steady, heavy. Someone was walking toward him. He didn't move. Maybe the bullies were back. Maybe they'd throw the other half of his cane in the gutter. But the footsteps stopped beside him. "Are you all right?" a calm voice asked. It was deep and steady, almost gentle. Eli hesitated. They broke my cane." "I can't get home." The stranger didn't laugh. Instead, there was a rustle, like someone taking something from a bag. Then a hand touched Eli's shoulder. "Firm, warm, kind. You dropped this," the man said. But what he placed in Eli's hand didn't feel like the old cane. It was heavier, smoother, cool like metal. Before Eli could speak, the man said, "This one won't break." The words were quiet, but they held power. Eli's fingers moved over the new cane. It felt strange, strong, almost alive. "Who are you?" Eli asked. The man didn't answer. He just placed something else in Eli's hand, a folded piece of cloth, and said, "Keep walking, Eli. The path isn't over." Eli's breath caught. "How do you know my name?" But when he turned his head, the man was already walking away, his footsteps fading into the rain. Eli sat there, gripping the mysterious cane, feeling its quiet hum beneath his palm. Somewhere inside, a warmth began to grow, a tiny spark of hope. He didn't know yet, but this was the night his life would change forever. The rain had slowed, falling in quiet threads that shimmered under the dim streetlights. Eli still sat on the edge of the cold sidewalk, his wet hair stuck to his forehead. The pieces of his broken cane rested beside him, reminders of how helpless the night had made him feel. He tried to imagine his way home, counting steps in his head, but without his cane, even the first one was impossible. Then he heard it again. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, calm. They didn't sound like the mocking rhythm of bullies. They sounded purposeful, steady, each one splashing lightly in the puddles as it came closer. Eli straightened, his fingers tightening around the wet ground. His voice was small but brave. "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped just a few feet away. A man spoke, his voice deep and strangely comforting. "You dropped this." Something cold and smooth was placed into Eli's trembling hands. It wasn't the broken wood he'd expected. It was different, metal maybe, but light and balanced. It gave off a faint warmth, like it had been held for a long time. Eli's fingers traced its shape, confused. "This isn't mine," he said softly. "Maybe it is now," the man replied. The air around them felt heavier, charged with quiet energy. Eli lifted the strange cane and tapped it against the ground. The sound wasn't like wood at all. It echoed deeper, resonating through the wet street like a pulse. "Who are you?" Eli asked again. There was a long silence. The man's breath misted faintly in the cold air. "Someone who knows what it's like to walk in darkness," he finally said. "Someone who once needed a hand, like you do now." Eli frowned, trying to place the voice. It didn't sound like anyone from town. There was something about it, soft but powerful, like it came from somewhere far away. He reached out into the rain, hoping to touch the man's hand, but found nothing. Only the sound of droplets hitting the ground. "Thank you," Eli whispered. The stranger said nothing for a moment. Then he added, almost in a whisper, "This one won't break. But remember, strength isn't just in your hands, Eli, it's in your heart." Eli froze. He hadn't told the man his name.
"How do you—"
he started, but the sound of the rain drowned his words. The footsteps began again, fading slowly into the distance. Eli turned his head toward the sound, calling out, "Wait, please, who are you?" No answer came back. Only the quiet hiss of rain and the hum of streetlights. The man was gone. Eli sat still for a long time, gripping the cane. The metal felt alive in his palm, warm now, faintly pulsing, almost like it was breathing. He stood shakily, leaning on it for support. To his surprise, it felt natural. The balance was perfect. When he tapped it forward, he could somehow feel the space ahead, as if the air itself was guiding him. Each tap painted a clearer image in his mind. The curve of the road, the height of the lamppost, even the movement of water flowing around his shoes. It was as though the world had opened up again, letting him walk with confidence. He followed the familiar turn step by step until he reached the orphan shelter. The caretaker scolded him for being late, but Eli barely heard her. His thoughts were still on that voice in the rain. That night, as he lay in bed, he held the new cane close. The sound of thunder rumbled far away, and with every flash he thought he heard faint words echo in his mind. Soft, rhythmic, impossible to understand. When he finally drifted to sleep, he dreamed of light. Not the dim orange glow of the shelter's lamps, but something pure and blue, stretching endlessly like the sky. And in that light he saw the faint shape of the stranger walking away, his coat glowing faintly, almost like armor. In the morning, Eli woke up to find the cane still warm beside him. He smiled, running his hand over the smooth surface. Somehow he knew it wasn't just a stick. It was something else. Something special. He whispered to himself, "This one won't break." Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun peeked through the clouds, sending golden light through the cracked windows of the shelter. Eli stood up, ready to face the world again. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like the blind orphan everyone pitied. He felt like someone with a purpose. Someone meant to discover why that stranger had found him in the rain. He didn't know yet, but the man who had helped him wasn't just a stranger. He was the first sign that Eli's small, forgotten town was about to witness something far beyond human understanding. The next morning, the world felt new to Eli. The storm had passed, leaving the streets shining under soft sunlight. The shelter smelled of warm porridge and soap, but Eli barely noticed any of it. His thoughts were fixed on the strange cane lying on his bed. He ran his hands over it again, tracing every smooth curve and hidden groove. It didn't feel like wood, metal, or plastic. It felt alive, cool and warm at the same time, like it was breathing quietly. When he tapped it once against the floor, a faint vibration traveled up his arm. Not painful, just awake. "Eli, you all right?" asked Maria, the caretaker. She was a kind woman in her 50s who always looked tired but cared deeply for the children. "Yes, Miss Maria," Eli said softly. "I just got a new cane." Maria paused when she saw it. "Where did you get that?" "Looks expensive." "A man gave it to me last night," Eli said. "After the bullies broke mine." Maria frowned. "What man? What did he look like?" Eli lowered his head. "I don't know. I couldn't see him," she sighed. "Well, it's a blessing someone helped you. Just be careful, okay? Some people aren't what they seem." Eli nodded, though he already knew this man was different. There was something in his voice, something that felt like strength hidden behind sadness. After breakfast, Eli went outside. The other kids played soccer in the yard, shouting and laughing. He walked to the edge of the old brick wall, tapping his new cane. It made a strange humming sound that wasn't loud but echoed softly, like the street itself was whispering back. When he turned his head, he could feel things, not see them, but sense them. He could tell where the ball bounced, where a bird sat on the wall, even how far away the trees were. The cane seemed to paint invisible pictures in his mind. He laughed quietly. "You're special," he said to the cane, half joking. But then, something happened that made his breath stop. A small pebble rolled down the ground toward him. He hadn't heard it, hadn't touched it, but somehow he knew it was there. Without thinking, he moved his foot aside right before it reached him. The image in his mind had warned him, like a ripple through still water. He froze, realizing this wasn't just a tool. It was something beyond human design. He spent the rest of the day testing it. He walked around corners, counting steps, tracing paths with perfect accuracy. Every time he swung the cane forward, he could feel the shapes around him, the way sound waves traveled. The air shifted, the world breathed. That night, when everyone slept, Eli sat near the window holding the cane upright. It gave off a faint blue glow now, pulsing like a heartbeat. He whispered, "Who are you?" Not to anyone, but to whatever was inside the cane. The glow pulsed once more, almost as if it answered. The next day, Eli went to school. The same bullies were there, leaning against the gate. They laughed when they saw him, whispering to each other. "Look, the blind kid got himself a fancy stick," one said. Eli didn't reply. He simply walked forward. When one of them stuck out his foot to trip him, Eli stopped an inch before it. He didn't know how, but he could feel the motion before it happened. The boy blinked, startled. "How did you—" Eli tilted his head. "You should move," he said quietly. There was something about his calm tone that made even the bully hesitate. Eli walked past them and went straight to class. After school, he returned to the same street where he'd met the stranger. He waited, holding the cane tight, but no one came. Then he noticed a flicker from the streetlight above. It blinked once, twice, and then for a moment he thought he saw a reflection in the puddle at his feet. A tall figure standing right behind him. But when he turned, no one was there. His heart raced. "Are you there?" he asked aloud. Only silence. Later that night, while the others slept, Eli woke up suddenly. The cane beside his bed was glowing again, stronger this time. The hum was louder. Curious and afraid, he touched the tip to the ground, and instantly he saw something in his mind. Not with his eyes, but inside his thoughts. It was an image. A tall man standing among stars, his hand raised. Around him floated machines, planets, and strange lights. And there, at the man's feet, was the same cane. The voice from the rain echoed softly through his mind. "This one won't break." Eli gasped and pulled his hand back. The glow faded. He didn't sleep again that night. He sat in the dark, heart racing, realizing the truth. The stranger wasn't a man from this town, maybe not even from this world, and the cane, whatever it was, had chosen him. By the next week, life at the shelter had begun to feel normal again, or at least it looked that way from the outside. But inside, everything was changing for Eli. He walked faster now, smoother, like someone who could sense the shape of the world before it happened. The strange cane never left his side. He carried it everywhere, even when Maria teased him for treating it like a sword. At night, it still hummed softly when the world grew quiet. Sometimes he'd wake up to faint blue light shining from its handle. It never frightened him. Instead, it made him feel safe, like someone or something was watching over him. One afternoon after school, the bullies found him again. He had just finished helping an old man carry groceries across the street when he heard the familiar, cruel laughter from behind. "Well, well," said the biggest one, his voice full of mockery. "The blind hero is back." Eli turned his head slightly. His blank eyes were calm, almost unreadable. "I don't want trouble," he said quietly. "Too bad," another boy sneered. "We do." They began to circle him like wolves. One of them snatched his bag and threw it into the dirt. The others laughed. But this time Eli didn't flinch. His fingers rested gently on the cane and he felt something pulse inside it, soft like a heartbeat responding to his own. "Give it back," Eli said firmly. "Or what?" one boy challenged, stepping closer. "You gonna hit me with your magic stick?" The air seemed to hum for a second. The sound came from the cane. Then, without Eli even swinging it, a burst of invisible force pushed outward. A wave of energy rippled through the air, slamming the nearest bully backward into the muddy ground. The others froze, eyes wide in shock. "What the?" one gasped. Eli's heart raced.
He hadn't meant to do that.
His grip tightened on the cane and its faint blue glow brightened as if defending him. The bullies scrambled to their feet.
He's a freak,
one shouted. "Let's get out of here." They ran, their shoes splashing through puddles, not daring to look back. Eli stood alone, chest rising and falling. For the first time in his life, no one had hurt him. No one had made him feel small. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt strange. He turned the cane over in his hands. The blue light faded again, leaving only silence. "What are you?" he whispered. And then, just for a moment, a faint voice answered inside his head. "You are not alone, Eli." He froze. The words were soft, like a memory echoing through water. "Who said that?" he asked aloud, looking around. No one was there. Only the wind through the alley and the distant sound of children playing. That night, he told Maria what happened. She didn't believe him at first. "Eli, maybe you're just tired," she said kindly. "You've had a lot of stress lately." But Eli knew what he'd felt. That push, that voice, it was real. And it wasn't the first time something impossible had happened. Later, as the shelter grew quiet, Eli sat awake on his bed. He held the cane tightly, running his fingers over its glowing symbols. They were faint lines, invisible in daylight but clear in darkness, patterns that shifted and changed like living light. The voice came again, clearer this time. "You are chosen." Eli's breath caught. Chosen for what? No answer. Just a soft hum that grew louder, pulsing through the floorboards. Then somewhere far away in the upper layers of the night sky a satellite flickered. Hidden from human eyes, a coded signal pulsed outward from Earth's surface, originating from one small town and one glowing cane. The signal shot into orbit, where a distant receiver captured it. A cold mechanical voice spoke in a language not of this world. Subject located. Human resonance confirmed. Eli didn't hear that. He only felt a strange warmth fill his chest, a mix of fear and hope. He knew now that the cane wasn't from Earth, and whoever or whatever had given it to him was watching. Before he slept, Eli whispered toward the darkness, "If you can hear me, please tell me why me." The cane glowed once, faintly, almost like it understood. Outside, the wind howled through the night. Somewhere above the clouds, an object moved across the stars, a ship cloaked in light, turning slowly as it followed the signal from Earth. Inside that ship, a familiar voice spoke. "He's found the connection. Prepare for contact." Back in his small bed, Eli clutched the cane close, unaware that the world around him was about to change. The bullies had been the least of his fears. Something much greater was coming, and it was coming for him. The night came silent and cold. The town slept under a silver moon, but inside the old orphan shelter, Eli couldn't rest. He sat upright in bed, clutching his strange cane as if it were part of him. It hummed softly again, that same low living sound that seemed to echo from beyond the stars. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, stars, shapes, and the face of the man from the rain. He whispered to himself, "Who are you? Why did you choose me?" No one answered. Only the faint hum replied, pulsing through the air like a heartbeat he could almost hear. Then suddenly it stopped. The air grew still. Eli tilted his head. Outside the window, the night was too quiet. No crickets, no wind, no distant cars. Just silence, and then a low hum, deeper, stronger than before, rolled through the sky. He stood, feeling the vibration under his bare feet. It wasn't thunder. It was something else, something alive. The window began to glow faintly blue, the same color as the cane. Eli felt warmth wash over his skin. He reached out carefully, pressing his palm to the glass, and the glow pulsed once, responding to his touch. A voice whispered, faint but clear, directly into his mind. "You've done well, Eli." Eli stumbled back, breathing fast. Who's there?" The door to his room creaked open. For a second, he thought it was Maria checking in, but the figure that stepped through the doorway was taller, broader, and shining faintly under the moonlight. It was the man from the rain. He wasn't wearing a coat anymore. Now his body shimmered with strange metallic armor that bent the light itself. His eyes glowed faintly blue, calm, human but not quite. His presence filled the small room like quiet thunder. Eli froze, speechless. "You remembered my voice," the man said softly. "Good." Eli swallowed hard. You're real." "I thought I dreamed you." The man smiled faintly. "Dreams are only doors to truth." Eli took a small step forward. "Who are you?" The man's gaze softened. "A soldier," he said after a long pause. "From far beyond your skies. I fought in wars that burned planets. I was blinded. Like you." His voice dropped, carrying a sadness Eli could feel in his bones. "But they gave me sight again, sight beyond the eyes." Eli gripped the cane tighter. "And you gave this to me?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes. That cane holds a fragment of something powerful. Something my people once guarded. It responds only to those with hearts pure enough to wield it. And it chose you, Eli." Eli frowned, confused. "Why me? I'm just a blind orphan. I don't even understand what it is." The man stepped closer, kneeling beside him. His armor made no sound. "Because when others mocked you, you never became cruel. When you were left in darkness, you still cared for others. You see, Eli, just not with eyes." Eli felt his throat tighten. "But I'm scared." It does things. It talks sometimes." The man looked at the cane, then back at him. "It speaks truth. It's not a weapon, but a key. What it opens depends on you." He placed a gloved hand on Eli's shoulder. "You've already awakened part of it. That's why they found you." "They?" Eli whispered. The man looked toward the window where faint light shimmered far in the distance, lights that weren't stars. "Others, hunters. They seek what you carry. And they're coming." Eli's chest tightened. "Coming here?" "Yes," the man said simply. "But you're not helpless. The cane will protect you if you listen." Eli hesitated, then asked softly, "What do I call you?" The man paused. His eyes seemed distant, lost in memories. "Once they called me Kale." "Kale," Eli repeated, testing the sound. Kale smiled faintly. "Keep the cane close, trust it. It will guide you when I can't." The hum outside grew louder. Kale turned his head sharply. "They're near." He reached into his armor and placed a small disc into Eli's hand. It was smooth and cold, covered in tiny glowing lines. "What's this?" Eli asked. "Proof," Kale said, "of who you are becoming." The air suddenly shimmered with light. Kale's form began to fade, breaking into streams of blue particles. "Wait!" Eli cried. "Don't leave!" Kale's fading voice echoed softly. "You are not alone, Eli. Remember, your heart is your sight." And then he was gone. Eli stood frozen in the quiet room, his breath trembling. The cane pulsed once in his hand like a heartbeat answering his fear. Outside, the wind returned. But high above the clouds, something vast moved, dark ships gliding silently, following the light that had found a boy named Eli. He didn't know it yet, but his small act of kindness, his refusal to hate, had drawn the attention of forces far beyond his world. And this time, the storm wasn't coming from Earth. The next morning arrived too quietly. The sky looked normal, but something in the air felt strange, heavier, charged, like the calm before lightning strikes. Eli didn't tell Maria what had happened the night before. How could he? Who would believe a blind boy who claimed an armored stranger from the stars had visited his room? Yet the proof was in his hands. The small disc Kale had given him sat on his desk, cold and smooth, glowing faintly with shifting blue lines. Every time Eli touched it, he heard a faint whisper in his head, a sound like distant wind and voices speaking in harmony. He held the cane beside it, and the two seemed to respond to each other, pulsing with synchronized light. It wasn't random. It felt alive, as if they were talking in a language too deep for words. He whispered, What are you trying to tell me? The disc flashed once, and suddenly Eli wasn't standing in the small shelter room anymore. His mind filled with light. Stars surrounded him. He floated above a sea of glowing planets, watching ships shaped like silver wings drift between galaxies. Voices echoed softly, forming words he could somehow understand. The blind see truth. The cruel see dust. The kind awaken the core. Eli gasped and stumbled back, the vision fading. He was back in his room, the disc warm in his palm. His heart raced. The core, he repeated under his breath. What is that? Before he could think further, a knock came at his door. Eli? Maria's voice. Are you ready for breakfast? Yes, he said quickly, hiding the disc under his pillow. Coming. At the table, he sat quietly while the other kids laughed and talked. Outside, birds sang, pretending the world was ordinary. But Eli could feel something above, something watching. Each tap of his cane sent a faint echo that stretched farther than sound should travel, like invisible waves reaching the sky. When he went out for his walk, the feeling grew stronger. It was like the world around him had layers now, vibrations, signals, living frequencies humming beneath reality. The cane was tuning into them. Then, without warning, the cane grew hot in his hand. The humming turned sharp. Eli froze. Images flashed in his mind again. Kyle standing under a burning sky, shouting something he couldn't fully hear. Behind him, dark ships cut through the clouds, leaving trails of blue fire. Eli stumbled, clutching his head. Kale, what's happening? A voice, soft, mechanical, but familiar, answered inside his mind. They've found your world. The message is ready. You must send it. Send it? How? He asked aloud, trembling. The cane pulsed once, glowing brighter. Through light. Through belief. Your heart is the key. Eli didn't understand, but he knew what to do. He raised the cane and pointed it toward the sky. The moment the tip touched air, it began to hum so loud it shook the ground. Light erupted from it, blinding, beautiful, spiraling upward like a pillar into the heavens. People in town stopped what they were doing. Children on bikes, workers on rooftops, even Maria rushing out of the shelter. All looked up at the sudden beam that split the morning sky. It was blue, pure, alive. Inside that beam, Eli heard countless voices, ancient, powerful, kind. They spoke as one. Message received. Human compassion verified. The core will remember. Then, just as quickly as it began, the light vanished. The air grew calm again. Eli fell to his knees, breathing hard. He could still feel warmth spreading from the cane into his chest. In the distance, thunder rolled, though the sky was clear. He stood slowly. The townspeople were whispering, pointing. Some were afraid. Others thought it was a miracle. But Eli felt something deeper, a quiet peace mixed with understanding. That night, as the town buzzed with rumors, Eli sat outside under the stars. The cane rested beside him, faintly glowing. The disc in his pocket vibrated softly, and Cale's voice echoed in his mind. The message has gone beyond your son. You've done what I couldn't. You reminded the core why Earth still matters. Eli smiled faintly. Was that what this was all for? Just a message? Cale's voice softened. Not just a message, Eli, a reminder. The universe forgets sometimes that kindness is still power. The stars above flickered brighter as if listening. The cane's glow faded to a calm blue heartbeat, syncing with Eli's own. He looked toward the horizon, blind eyes seeing nothing, but his heart saw everything. He whispered to the night, I hope they heard us. Far above, beyond human reach, a cluster of alien ships hovered silently, their hulls marked with the same symbols as Eli's cane. One of them sent a burst of light into the darkness, a reply written across the stars. It said in pure, radiant letters, Humanity, seen. The next morning, the town awoke to something no one could explain. The sky was glowing. A band of pale blue light stretched across the horizon, shimmering like dawn trapped in the clouds. It wasn't sunlight, and it wasn't an illusion. Every news station, every camera, every stunned witness pointed upward, trying to understand. But only one person already knew. Eli stood on the roof of the old orphan shelter, his cane glowing faintly in his hand. He couldn't see the sky, but he could feel it. He could feel the message pulsing through the air like a heartbeat that reached beyond the earth itself. Maria rushed out to find him. Eli, she shouted out of breath. You shouldn't be up here. It's not safe. Something strange is happening. He turned toward her voice and smiled gently. "I know, Miss Maria," he said softly. "It's supposed to happen." "Supposed to? What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, a low hum rolled through the clouds. The light above began to move, shaping itself into glowing patterns. Every phone camera in town caught the moment when the light formed into 3 simple human words. "Kindness is power." The words burned bright enough to be seen from miles away. People stopped their cars in the street. Children pointed from playgrounds. Even the bullies who once mocked Eli stood frozen in awe. For a long, silent minute, no one spoke. It wasn't fear that filled them. It was wonder. Something deep in their hearts stirred, something that reminded them of who they were supposed to be. Maria gasped, covering her mouth. "Eli, it's in the sky." Those words, everyone can see them. Eli gripped his cane tighter. The blue light pulsed once like a heartbeat of joy. He whispered, "Then he heard me." Maria looked confused. "Who heard you?" But Eli didn't answer. He just tilted his head slightly as if listening to something only he could hear. Inside his mind, Cale's voice returned, soft, proud, echoing from a distance that no map could reach. "You did it, Eli. The Corps received your message. Those words are yours now, not mine." Eli's heart swelled. "They were always yours too," he whispered under his breath. "You showed me how to see." Kyle's voice faded for a moment, then came back weaker. "They're leaving your world in peace now. The hunters were stopped. The Corps has remembered the value of your kind. What happens next belongs to humans again." Eli felt warmth spread through him, a sense of calm he hadn't known since before the rain. "Will I ever see you again?" he asked quietly. There was a pause. Then Cale said, "When your heart calls the light again, I'll find you. Remember, Eli, true sight isn't given. It's earned. You've already seen more than most ever will." The connection faded and the glow of the cane dimmed, but Eli wasn't sad. He smiled, a real smile, one that reached the corners of his face. Down in the town square, people began gathering. Reporters, scientists, and strangers stood side by side under the same message still shining across the heavens. For once, no one argued, no one shouted. They just looked, feeling the same silent truth. Eli came down from the roof, holding the cane gently as he walked through the crowd. When the bullies saw him, they froze. The tallest one stepped forward awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Hey, he mumbled. "About what we did? We're sorry." Eli tilted his head, listening to the honesty in their voices. Then he smiled. "I forgive you." They didn't know what to say after that. But one of them whispered, "How did you do all this?" Eli chuckled softly. "I didn't. Kindness did." The boys looked at one another, unsure whether to laugh or cry. As evening came, the glowing message in the sky began to fade, dissolving into the stars. But even as the light disappeared, something new began spreading. People helping each other, strangers smiling at strangers, children sharing food with kids they'd never talked to before. The next day, the news reached every corner of the planet. Astronomers from space agencies confirmed the event was real. Satellites detected the energy signature, an unknown pulse that traveled beyond Earth's atmosphere, bouncing off distant objects. The official explanation failed, but one fact remained. Those 3 words had been written across the sky for exactly 7 minutes, the same number of minutes Eli had sat in the rain before Cale appeared. Eli sat on the orphanage steps that night, tapping his cane gently against the ground. The sound echoed softly in the quiet dark. Above him, the stars shimmered like eyes watching lovingly from afar. He whispered to the night, "You can see, Kyle. I know you can." For a brief moment, the cane flickered once, just once, as if answering. Eli smiled and leaned back, his sightless eyes turned toward the stars. The message had gone beyond the Earth, beyond even the galaxy. But its truth remained right here, glowing in the heart of one small boy who had lost his sight but gained something far greater. And from that day forward, anyone who met Eli would say the same thing, that when he smiled, it felt like he could see your soul. Because he could. And every time someone showed kindness, somewhere in the quiet of space, Kale's people would see it and whisper the three words that saved a world: kindness is power.